Prabhupada would walk on the Chatikara road, all agricultural land. One morning, this one sadhu, he was wearing saffron. He greeted Prabhupada. And then the next morning, again, he was there. You know, he would do this every day, and then he started following us. Then each day he would come closer and closer to Prabhupada so that he could hear. And then one day he said something to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada replied him. And then each day he would come and they would talk more and more. Then at the end of the walk, when Prabhupada would go in the temple, he would go on his way. But then one morning, then he came in, did the morning program. And then one morning, Prabhupada would go into his house before coming to the temple. And then he came in, Prabhupada invited him. And then Prabhupada told me, all right, he's joining, you know, prepare him, give him a room, whatever facilities. And he was Gaur Govinda. That's how he joined, Gaur Govinda Swami. And Prabhupada initiated him, gave him sannyas, everything. But he was living in Vrindavan as a sadhu, as a renunciate. And just by seeing Prabhupada on the morning walk, each day, more and more he became drawn in. And then he surrendered. So Prabhupada was making devotees just by going on a morning walk.
I remember one lecture in Fogel Ashram, Prabhupada was saying, so my devotees, you know, you are so many and you have spent each so much money to come here. He was adding it all up. He was saying, this is the right use of money, that devotees should come every year to become inspired and then to go back and to preach. You know, so he was encouraging devotees to come.
One morning we took a walk with Srila Prabhupada. At one stage, a bullock cart passed by with a few passengers in it. Srila Prabhupada commented how nice the simple life was, how people don't really need motor cars and luxuries, but they can just live very simply. We would walk past fields, and Prabhupada said that all you really need to live is grains, rice, and dal. He said you don't even really need to have vegetables to live. You can just live from grains and save time for Krishna consciousness.
I was having trouble with Rahu planet, you know, for 18 years, and I think 9 or 10 more years to go. And I went to an astrologer in Vrindavan, and he told me to wear a yantra. So when I came to the gate to Krishna Balaram temple, who would greet me there but Brahmananda Maharaj? And he said, what are you wearing, Vishal? I said, I'm wearing a yantra. I just came from an astrologer. And he said, this will counteract the influence of bad stars. And Brahmananda's reply was, Prabhupada says, you don't have to add anything to this process. So I said, well, I want to speak with Srila Prabhupada. So he set up a time. And Srila Prabhupada asked me about the astrology. He said, how much did he charge you, who he was? And I mentioned, and I said, Srila Prabhupada, I was wearing it because I thought it would help me become more Krishna conscious. And Prabhupada quoted the verse, Sarva Dharman Paritraja. He said the whole shloka, 1866. And Prabhupada said, if you just surrender to Krishna, Krishna with a slight kick can annihilate 100,000 Rahu planets. And then I still wasn't exactly sold on it. Srila Prabhupada, your spiritual master, he was a great astrologer. And Srila Prabhupada cut me off real quick. And then he said, but he did it for a short time. And after that, I cut the yantra off my neck and tossed it somewhere in Vrindavan. I don't care where it is.
For a very short time, we had that flat for Prabhupada. And when he lived there, he used to go to the rooftop every evening and give darshan. He'd chant his Gayatri. And one time when he went up there, he said, I have two favorite places in the world, and this Juhu and Hawaii. Why? Because wherever there are palm trees, that is paradise. And at that time, I counted all the trees. We had over 200 trees on the Hare Krishna land, palm trees. So Prabhupada loved it there. The tenants that lived in the backside, they would line up along the road. As Prabhupada would come in, they would all be standing there, ready to greet him, and Prabhupada would smile and speak to every one of them. It was such a very nice thing. Sometimes, as devotees, we had a little problem with the tenants, but they all loved Prabhupada. They must have felt his love.
At this time, there were not that many people who came, but the people who did come were very devoted, like Manmohan Das Kejariwal. We did all kinds of life memory making together in Bombay, and these ladies, Gandharvika's mother, they cooked and they cleaned, they did everything. There was an awful lot of devotion in these very few people. When he gave lectures at night, there maybe had been 30, 40 people came. They were very attentive, and they were willing to do anything, like Mr. Sethi when he came. You know, he built a temple as a gift to Prabhupada, more or less, and rebuilt it also. We rebuilt it in one day, practically speaking, when they tore it down. So at this time, it was, you can't really say anything was really happening. It was just try to collect some money, try to get it together. But Prabhupada really liked it there. I think he felt very at home in Bombay. He liked his quarters, even though they weren't very spectacular. It was just a plain old apartment, and he just liked being there. He liked the weather. He liked very much sitting on that roof at night. That's Mr. Sethi. He was very devoted. He practically did anything. This is the daughter of the warriors. They were incredibly devoted people, the whole family.
This was the Gurukul kids. All of us came up and, you know, we'd made these garlands and we all offered it to Prabhupada. It was such a festival. We were all excited at the same time, very anxious, you know. At that time the temple was small, so it was more like a family, so everyone knew each other and everyone, it was one big family. And we were there every evening. Daddy was there like clockwork. He used to go to Mangal Artik and Guru Puja, and then he'd go to work. And the evening Artik, he would be there too. I mean, we had pictures at first on the altar, and then Navyogendra Swami, he'd given us this Chaturbhuj Krishna. So we used to go ahead and have Artiks, and every day evening Artik was my job. I was a pujari at home. So that was one thing Daddy had started at home, was to have the evening Artik. 6 o'clock I had to come back in, take a shower. By 7 I had to do the Artik. And before he passed away, actually, the night before he got really sick and he had to go to the hospital. And he said, no, until baby finishes the Artik, I'm not going. So then I came, I did the Artik, and he was like breathing real heavy. He was really, really sick. And then after the Artik, he left for the hospital, and next morning at 10 o'clock he passed away. That was the last I saw my dad. After I did the Artik, he gave me a big hug before he went, and that was it. So, if it wasn't for Prabhupada, we wouldn't be doing that Artik. We taught everything we have, everything we know. That's my dad and Mom, and that's Mr. Menon there. And that's my dad.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Here we see Srila Prabhupada, so transcendental, so detached, and watching these girls dance. You know, he's so patient, Jagat Guru of the whole world. He's writing books that will last for 10,000 years. And yet he's so at home in all situations. He's so peaceful. That's what we see after 30 years, because in those days we were very young. We took it for granted. But now that we have become older, we realize that even in the old age, Prabhupada had no anxiety or no worries. His only worry was how to save the world in Krishna consciousness. Here in Bombay, he was very intimate with all the devotees as well as the guests. Whoever came forward was blessed by Prabhupada immensely. So this was a place, you can say, where Prabhupada distributed the love of God very freely. Patra patra vichara nahi, nahi sthana sthan. Without considering of who is deserving and who is not, without considering this place is okay or not, Prabhupada just magnanimously passed out loving devotional service. He is smiling so royally, so blissfully. And this is his famous style. He would nod his head, approving whatever was going on. Acharya Maharaj is asking Prabhupada, showing the book, and he's going to read now. This was Prabhupada's another famous pastime. Any guest would come, he would quote a verse from Bhagavad Gita, and then he would say, open the Bhagavad Gita, start reading. And they would ask us to read the whole verse and the purport. Then again speak on that. This way, every darshan became a perpetual Srimad Bhagavatam class. From 4 o'clock in the afternoon till 9 o'clock, practically till he took rest. He would constantly speak.
One evening, I was alone on the roof with Srila Prabhupada, and we were talking about Vanashram. This was just after he gave the Vanashram talks in Vrindavan. And he was telling me various things, similar things that he had discussed on the walk. And then he started talking about Gandhi. He said that Gandhi actually wanted to establish Vanashram throughout India. His plan that he had presented to Nehru and the others was that first every village should become self-sufficient in making their own clothes, food, etc., etc. But that, he said, Sardar Patel and Nehru betrayed Gandhi. And they went ahead with the British plan to introduce factories immediately. And he said, because of that, India has become spoiled. Had they set up the villages first the way Gandhi taught, he said, then the spiritual progress of India would have remained intact. And then after that, he was almost tearful, and he said to me, I loved Gandhi. He really wanted the best things for India. And I was just amazed that Prabhupada said that. So the next morning, we went on a morning walk. And every morning, Prabhupada would walk on the beach in Bombay. At different times, some of the Indian gentlemen, life members, etc., would join our party. And when they would join the party, as is customary, they would offer, with folded palms, pranam to Prabhupada, namaskar. And Prabhupada, out of respect, would do the same to them. So on the morning after this discussion with Srila Prabhupada, we took a much longer walk than usual, way down to the end of the beach. So when we got very far down the beach, and I was on his left-hand side, he turned to his left, and he offered his pranam in a very deep and generous way. And when I looked, there was no one there. But way up, there was this statue of Gandhi under a gazebo. Prabhupada had walked to the end of the beach to offer a respect to Gandhi. And then we're walking back, and some of the life members come and join. And one of the life members brings up something about Gandhi. So they're saying Gandhi said this and that in the Gita, and what did Prabhupada think? And Prabhupada said, Gandhi destroyed the Gita. Gandhi said this, Gandhi said that. He made all mistakes. And then Prabhupada was going on and on, now criticizing Gandhi's translation of the Gita and his different ideas and concepts like that. And then after he finished saying all these things, he turned and he looked at me and he smiled.
Many aristocratic people take their morning walks on Juhu Beach. And one morning, as we were approaching the end of the beach, some very poor and humble fisher ladies approached Srila Prabhupada, and they very humbly joined their palms together and offered respects to Srila Prabhupada and said, Hare Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada commented that they're hundreds of times better than the rich people who don't know how to respect a saintly person. Another time, as we were walking back from Juhu Beach, Dr. Patel noticed the compound wall that Mr. Sethi had built around the property on Srila Prabhupada's instructions. So Dr. Patel told Srila Prabhupada that people are saying now you have a prison inside there. And Prabhupada paused for a moment and said, no, the prison is outside. Inside is freedom.
I was walking with Prabhupada on the beach, and I wanted to impress Prabhupada. So I said, Prabhupada, you know, just look how all these people are mad after sense gratification. And he turned to me and he said, you brought the poison with you. Which means that previously, India was Krishna conscious, and the Westerners brought, you know, the sense gratification of Western civilization to India. They brought the poison with them.
We passed at one particular tree, had quite a lot of foliage on it, and that morning there was a lot of birds in that tree. And they were making a racket like anything. It's very noisy. To that extent you couldn't really hear, you know, what you were saying. It was very noisy. And then Prabhupada stopped, looked at the tree and pointed his cane towards the tree. And he said, they're discussing Krishna Katha. And we're all like looking. What? And then Prabhupada turned around and he kept walking. And we're all like, really? You know. Prabhupada was quite serious.
Sometimes Srila Prabhupada would point to the seagulls or small birds that would walk just by the border of the ocean. And he would say, the huge ocean with such huge waves, at any moment the waves could drown the little birds, but still they dare to walk just at the tip of the water. Why? And then Srila Prabhupada said, because the ocean is under the control of Krishna. And the birds know the ocean is under control. It cannot suddenly go out of its boundaries and drown them. And therefore they dare to walk by the edge of the ocean.
And we simply think how much we are obliged to him for giving us protection in so many dangerous situations. My dear Dava, when we think of Krishna's beautiful face and eyes and his different activities here in Vrindavan, we become so overwhelmed that all our activities cease. We simply think of Krishna, how he used to smile and how he looked upon us. When we go to the banks of the Yamuna and other lakes of Vrindavan, or near Govardhan Hill or the pasturing field, we see that the impressions of Krishna's footprints are still on the surface of the earth. We remember him playing in those places because he was constantly visiting them.
Therefore, Mahabharata text that this Krishna Leela is Maya. They're surprised how God can be affectionate like this. He's nirbhika, without any attachment. They cannot understand this.
On one occasion, Srila Prabhupada was criticizing the Mayavadi philosophy especially the philosophy of Vivekananda and Ramakrishna. Yato mat tato pas. As many ways, so many conclusions. In this philosophy, it means that whomever you want to worship, you can worship. Whoever your heart goes to, you can worship. And you will attain the same supreme destination. Srila Prabhupada was extremely opposed to this conclusion. So whenever such idea came, he would put them down forcefully and call them rascals who believes in such nonsense philosophy. So one time, one of the Dr. Patel's friends, Mr. Shah, he started screaming, "Why, you always criticize so many different people." So devotees were ready to push him away. But Prabhupada said, no, don't do anything. So for 3-4 minutes he kept criticizing. And we kept walking. Finally Prabhupada said, what can we do? We have to train our disciples against all kinds of deviant philosophies. Therefore sometimes we have to criticize. Krishna also criticizes in the Bhagavad Gita. Namam duskutino mudha prapadyanti naradhama. Krishna also, in this way, criticizes people who do not surrender to him. Therefore, we also have to do that, Prabhupada would say. So then he kept quiet. It was about 5 minutes before we come to the temple, just at the corner of the Gandhigram Road. So we all came back quietly. Prabhupada would not let any of us become upset with the man. Then, as usual, we came to the Vyasasana and Guru Puja was going on. We were offering flowers. So this Mr. Shah also came to offer flowers. He offered flowers to Prabhupada's lotus feet. Then he put his head on Prabhupada's feet and started crying like a little baby. He was just crying incessantly. He knew he had committed a great offense. Srila Prabhupada was so kind, he just put his hand on his head and said, it's okay, it's okay. So gradually cooled him down. After that, next day Prabhupada said, we don't want to talk because if Dr. Patel comes, he will again argue. Let us instead read Krishna book. So this is how this Krishna book reading started instead of the discussions.
From the morning walk, Srila Prabhupada would come up to the temple. We'd open the curtains. He'd offer his respects to the deities. We would then offer flowers to the deities and flowers to Srila Prabhupada. And that would be our morning greeting of the deities and Srila Prabhupada. On this particular morning when we came, Srila Prabhupada was asked to sit in the Vyasasana. And then when he sat in the Vyasasana, a full arti was offered to Srila Prabhupada. And the prayer, Sri Guru Charana Padma, was sung in glorification of Srila Prabhupada. And we all went up and we all offered flowers to Prabhupada and offered our dandavats. And then after this puja was done to Srila Prabhupada, then Srila Prabhupada greeted the deities. And then we offered our respect to the deities. This was the first official Guru Puja that happened around April of '74, if I'm correct. And from that point on, it spread to all the temples in the movement. I went back to Africa, and then I told them that this is now how we're going to conduct the morning program. And similarly, other devotees went back to other temples, and this became the standard by which we worshipped Srila Prabhupada and the greeting of the deities in the morning.
One evening we were having a very ecstatic kirtan. We were singing and dancing, and it was very, very ecstatic. So I was trying to keep to the schedule, more or less, so that he could give class afterwards. But the kirtan this night just became very, very, it was wonderful kirtan. The kanchil blows and the arti's over. So I said, okay, let me lead one more round. So I led one more round, and it got ecstatic. I said, well, maybe one more round. And it got really ecstatic, I said, okay, this is it. We're going to stop. The devotees had finished responding, and I stopped the kirtan. And I was in the process of bowing down, And I heard the kartal still playing, ding, 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 ding. And I looked up, and Prabhupada, he was still going at the same tempo, and he was still in ecstasy. And I came back up and started chanting again, and Prabhupada's head was rocking side to side, but we kept on singing. That was very, very wonderful. And then we went on, past the time to start the class and everything. And at that time I waited for a signal from Prabhupada to stop. It wasn't really, he said, now stop, but you could tell when he was finished, it was okay to stop. So I waited for a cue, like a physical cue from his body. And at that time I became more attentive to his ecstasy as opposed to my ecstasy or our ecstasy.
Always the kirtans after class. Every time Prabhupada finished the class, you'd go, thank you very much. Then the kirtan would start, and that was very special. The classes were so sweet and so nice and so fantastic that you felt like jumping up and down after Prabhupada gave a class. We just leapt up in the air in gratitude. We went wild.
There I am, dancing kirtan like crazy. And Prabhupada would be noticing, looking at us. And when we would see his appreciation on his face, we could read the appreciation. And that would give us further boost, and higher we would jump. We were realizing this was giving him great